The woman who destroyed my wedding hugged me, smiled, and whispered, "By next week, everyone will forget your name." 7 years later, she stood outside my front door with tears streaming down her face. The expensive designer bags she used to show off were gone. The confidence she'd worn like a crown had disappeared. She looked at me with trembling lips and quietly said, "Claire, please, my mother is dying. You're the only person who can help me." She thought I would finally take my revenge. She had no idea. Life had already done that for me. 7 years earlier. People always say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. Mine started that way. The bridal suite buzzed with laughter as my bridesmaids adjusted my veil and teased me about crying before I even reached the aisle. I couldn't stop smiling. The gown wasn't covered in diamonds or designer labels, but it was perfect. Elegant lace sleeves, a high neckline, a long cathedral veil that flowed behind me. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the future I dreamed about since I was a little girl. In less than an hour, I was going to marry Noah. Then came a soft knock. Before anyone answered, the door opened. Vanessa Brooks, my brother Ryan's wife. She walked in carrying a beautifully wrapped white gift box tied with a silver ribbon. "There she is," she said warmly, "the most beautiful bride I've ever seen." She hugged me so tightly that everyone in the room smiled. For one brief moment, I believed she genuinely meant it. "I brought you something special," she said, placing the box into my hands. "You have to promise me one thing." "What?" I asked. "Don't open it until after the ceremony." I laughed. "Now you've made me curious." She winked. "Trust me, it'll make your day unforgettable." As she walked toward the door, she stopped, turned back, and for the briefest second, the smile disappeared from her face. There was something cold in her eyes, something that made my stomach tighten. I ignored the feeling. It was my wedding day. I refused to let fear ruin it. I never imagined that within the next 30 minutes, the woman who had just hugged me would become the reason my entire world collapsed. The chapel doors opened. Soft piano music echoed through the room as every guest rose to their feet. I took my father's arm and smiled. At the end of the aisle stood Noah. The moment our eyes met, everything else disappeared. His smile reminded me why I had fallen in love with him in the first place. I took one step, then another. Halfway down the aisle, a loud voice shattered the silence. "Stop the wedding!" The music cut off instantly. More than 200 guests turned toward the entrance. Vanessa came rushing inside, breathing heavily, tears running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I tried to stay quiet, but Noah deserves to know the truth." The entire church froze. Noah frowned. "What truth?" Vanessa's hands trembled as she held up her phone. "I received these this morning." She slowly walked toward him and handed him the phone. His smile faded. My heartbeat quickened. "What is it?" I asked. Nobody answered. I hurried toward Noah. When I looked at the screen, My blood ran cold. There were screenshots of text messages. They appeared to be from my phone. The messages were romantic, intimate. Then I saw the last one. I'll marry Noah today, divorce him within a year, and take everything I can. My knees almost gave out. No, those aren't real. I looked directly at Noah. You have to believe me. But before he could answer, Vanessa quietly spoke. I didn't want to ruin today, but I couldn't let my own family live a lie. Several gasps gasped. Someone whispered, "That's disgusting." Another guest quietly started recording on their phone. I reached for Noah's hand. "They're fake. Please, you know me." He searched my face. For one hopeful second, I thought he was going to defend me. Then his father stepped forward. "Son, whether they're real or not, everyone in this room has already seen them." The whispers grew louder. One by one, guests began looking at me with suspicion instead of joy. The happiest moment of my life was turning into a public trial. Then Vanessa looked me straight in the eyes. Beneath her fake tears, I caught the smallest smile. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. And I had walked straight into it. Nobody moved. The church had become painfully silent. I looked straight into Noah's eyes. "You know me. You know I would never send those messages." For a long moment, he didn't say a word. Then, he took a slow breath. "I don't believe Claire wrote them." Relief flooded through me. But before I could speak, Vanessa pulled another envelope from her purse. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I prayed I wouldn't have to show this." She handed it to Noah. Inside were printed photographs. Every picture showed me sitting across from the same man in a cafe. From the angle of the camera, it looked intimate, like we were secretly dating. My heart dropped. "Noah, I've never even met that man." Vanessa lowered her head. "I hired someone after I received the messages. I thought maybe there was an explanation. But these pictures, they broke my heart." The guests began whispering again. "It all matches. Poor Noah. I feel terrible for him." Every sentence felt like another knife in my chest. Noah stared at the photographs. Then he looked back at me. "I don't know what's real anymore." Tears filled my eyes. "Then trust me. Not the photos, not the rumors. Me." His fingers tightened around the envelope. "I want to. But if I ignore all of this today, everyone will spend the rest of our marriage questioning us." His voice cracked. "I can't start our life like this." Those words hurt more than every accusation combined. Because I finally understood. Vanessa hadn't destroyed Noah's love. She had destroyed his certainty. The officiant quietly closed his book. The music stopped. One by one, guests walked out of the church. Some avoided looking at me. Others stared as if I were a stranger. Within minutes, the wedding I'd spent a year planning was over. As I stood alone in my white gown, Vanessa walked past me. She leaned close enough that only I could hear. With the faintest smile, she whispered, "I told you I'd make today unforgettable." Then she walked away. At that moment, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was wondering how I was ever going to put my life back together. I spent 3 days hiding in my apartment. The wedding dress still hung beside my bedroom door. I couldn't bear to put it away. Every time I looked at it, I heard the whispers all over again. Poor Noah. I knew she was hiding something. What a disgrace. On the 4th day, Noah called. His voice sounded exhausted. "Claire, can we meet?" We met at a quiet coffee shop where no one knew us. He looked like he hadn't slept. The first thing he placed on the table was a report. I hired a digital forensic expert. My heart skipped. They proved the screenshots were fake. I closed my eyes. For one beautiful second, I thought everything would finally be okay. So, I whispered, "We can still get married." Noah's eyes filled with regret. I wish it were that simple. He explained that the fake messages had already spread across social media. Someone had uploaded the photos from the church before the ceremony was even canceled. People had judged me without asking a single question. "My parents think we'll spend the rest of our lives defending ourselves," he said quietly. I looked at him in disbelief. "And what do you think?" He reached across the table. "I believe you." "Then stand beside me." His hand slowly fell back. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." That was the moment I stopped crying. Not because the pain disappeared, but because I finally understood something. Vanessa hadn't taken my future. Fear had. I stood, picked up my purse, and smiled through my tears. I deserved someone who chose me when it was hardest. I hope one day you forgive yourself. Then I walked away. 2 weeks later, I packed everything I owned into my old car and accepted a teaching job in another state. I left behind the wedding dress, the rumors, the memories, and every person who had doubted me. As I drove toward a city where nobody knew my name, I made myself one promise. The next chapter of my life would be written by me, not by the woman who tried to destroy it. Starting over wasn't easy. My first apartment was barely bigger than a classroom. The heater worked only when it wanted to, and I counted every dollar before buying groceries. Some nights, I wondered if Vanessa had taken more than my wedding. Maybe she'd taken my confidence, too. But every morning, I put on a smile and walked into my classroom. My students didn't know anything about my past. To them, I was simply Miss Bennett. One afternoon, after class, a little girl named Emma handed me a folded note. Inside, she had written, "Thank you for believing in me when nobody else did." I read those words 3 times. Then I realized something. I had spent years believing in everyone except myself. That night, I enrolled in online business courses. After teaching all day, I studied until midnight. Weekends became opportunities instead of days to feel sorry for myself. 3 years later, the principal introduced me to a local entrepreneur who was building educational software for public schools. He needed someone who understood both children and classrooms. I accepted the job. It was the biggest risk I'd taken since leaving home. The company grew faster than anyone expected. When the founder retired, he offered me a partnership. I invested every dollar I had saved. Friends told me I was crazy. I did it anyway. It became the best decision of my life. 4 years later, our company had expanded into several states. We weren't just selling software anymore. We were helping thousands of students learn in better ways. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was living. One quiet Saturday morning, I stood on the porch of the home I'd worked so hard to buy, watering the flowers before breakfast. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I barely recognized the woman standing there. The expensive clothes were gone. The confident smile had disappeared. Dark circles framed exhausted eyes. She looked at me for several seconds before whispering, "Claire, I need your help." It was Vanessa. And somehow, life had brought us back to the place where everything had started. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavier than the 7 years between us. Finally, I stepped aside. "Come in." Vanessa walked slowly into my home. Her eyes drifted across the bookshelves, the family photos with my team, and the awards hanging on the wall. "You really built all this?" she asked. "Yes," she let out a shaky breath. "I used to tell myself you'd never recover. I was wrong." We sat across from each other. The woman who had once smiled while my wedding fell apart couldn't even meet my eyes. After a long silence, she whispered, "Ryan divorced me." I looked up. "My brother?" She nodded. 3 years ago. He found the original files on my old laptop. My heart pounded. What files? The fake text messages, the edited photos, the entire plan. She broke down crying. I created everything. I hired someone to take those pictures from angles that made them look like an affair. I wanted everyone to believe you were lying. The room became painfully quiet. "So, Ryan knows the truth?" "Yes." "And Noah?" He knows too. I swallowed hard. Did either of them ever try to contact me? They both did. I begged them not to. I couldn't face what I'd done. She reached into her purse and placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside is my full confession. Every fake screenshot. Every receipt. Every password. I gently pushed the envelope back toward Vanessa. You should keep it. She stared at me in confusion. Aren't you going to tell everyone what I did? I smiled softly. The people who truly loved me should have trusted me before they needed evidence. Fresh tears rolled down her face. I don't deserve your kindness. No, I answered honestly. But your mother doesn't deserve to pay for your mistakes. I picked up my phone and called the director of a charity our company had supported for years. After a brief conversation, I ended the call. The hospital has approved the funding. Your mother's surgery will be covered. Vanessa burst into tears. I can never repay you. You don't have to, I said. But you do owe 3 people something. She looked at me. The first is your mother. The second is my brother. And the third is yourself.